All right, today we're talking about the Peloponnesian Wars. Yes, actually this is not going to be good for Greece. This is going to tear Greece up. The time period we're talking about are the Peloponnesian Wars, as we're talking about the last part of the 5th century. The Persian Wars were at the start of the century, and the century will finish here with this terrible war between Athens and Sparta. So bad things will be happening here. When we last left off, we had just defeated the Persians. The Greeks had defeated the Persians. And just to let you know what the attitude is in Greece, it's really good. They have clearly defined now that they are Western and the Persians are Eastern. They've defeated the empire and driven them back. They have, in their mind, they have seen the difference between their freedoms against the tyranny of the Persians. Again, the word Eastern is used, the Greek word Oriental, to describe these Persians, and looking at the ruler, a man like Xerxes, the symbol of hubris, that their rulers are despots. They have unchecked power, and this leads to their corruption. The people, the Persians, or the people who serve the Persians, are like slaves. And this is where the word barbarian comes from. In the Greek mind, that's all they heard was ba, ba, ba. They couldn't understand all these different languages of all this massive empire, so they just refer to them all as the ba, ba people, the barbarians. The Greeks are different. The Greeks will be Western. They will claim that they are different and Western. They are the people of moderation, they say, that everything that they experience, they don't go with highs and lows, that they have found a middle road, that every life is precious to the Greeks. They have a self-worth and a value in their city. And then the result speaks for itself. If you look around these Greek cities, the art is clearly different. What we'll call Western, very beautiful art in every city. Architecture, a clear, distinct Greek style in their buildings, and then government. All these different governments of all these different cities, ranging from Athens with full democracy all the way to Sparta with a little bit of democracy. So some aspect, all these governments are different. They're independent of each other. They've all evolved their own style. All right, so what about the Persians? When they drove the Persians out at the Battle of Plataea, is this the end? Well, will the Persians return? I mean, you've defeated the great empire several times now, so surely they're going to come back. An empire can't let you walk away from this. The answer to this is no. The answer is that the Persians will not return. But you know this, and I know this, because the history book tells us this. But if you were a Greek at that time, you wouldn't know that. In fact, you would expect that surely Persia will seek revenge in some way. So the Greeks have to stay on guard. This whole century will be one of being on watch against the Persians. Can they form an alliance? Can the Greeks ally with each other? They got together at the Battle of Plataea and were able to defeat the Persians. Can they continue to do this? Can the Greeks stand together against Persia? That is the big question. For mutual defense, this is the point here. Mutual benefit. To defend ourselves, the Greeks, against this large, massive empire that might come at any moment. Now, the way that they are going to sell this issue is they're going to form an alliance. They will do this. And then you're supposed to contribute money. Every city will contribute part of its income, part of its wealth to the defense of all of Greece. This will bind everyone together so that everyone's going to join together. The thing is called the Delian League. An alliance of several Greek cities joining together here. The money that they put toward the mutual defense is kept on the island of Delos. This is right in the middle of the Aegean. It's a religious city, a religious island that all of the cities go to, so it's kind of a neutral zone. So they keep the money on the island, and they're going to spend it on defense. Now, this brings up the question of what sort of defense? What's the best way to defend Greece against the Persians? Well, the Athenian idea, and they're going to be leaders in this because they're a very powerful city and they fought the Persians really well, Marathon, Salamis. The Athenian idea is the Battle of Salamis was the key. If you watch the Persian Wars, when Persia came over, once Athens defeated the navy at Salamis, the Persians had to retreat. They cannot stay in Greece if they don't get supplied from the sea. So if you can cut their food supply, if you can stop the food coming to the Persians, if they come into Greece, they can't come into Greece because there'll be no food for them. So Salamis was the key. So the idea is to build warships. This is what Athens will push. We need warships. Defeat Persia at sea. We won't need to fight them on land. So the additional benefit of a navy, and being an American, we have a very strong navy, and we just don't, it's not just used for war. It's also used for trade. During peacetime, a navy protects sea trade. That way you don't have to worry about pirates, kind of policemen on the sea. So a navy serves many purposes. It's useful not just for war. And Greece also is dependent, not only the Persians are dependent upon food, but the Greeks are also dependent by this time. Their populations are really large, and they have colonies everywhere, and the colonies send food back to the motherland. And so this will serve the purpose of not only stopping the Persian food if they come, but also protecting Greek food supplies. The place Greece gets food from, again, we talked about this in a previous lecture, where all their colonies are. They have colonies in the Black Sea. The Black Sea is rich with wheat. And then from North Africa and Italy and Sicily. So really important, this food supply. I'm kind of hinting here because this is going to become really important in what's about to happen. Food is going to be key in all this. Sparta does not play along. While everyone else seems to be gathering around Athens and looking to Athens for the championship, Sparta refuses to join this Delian League. They don't have money. They don't deal with money. They don't want to play this game with Navy. They're not sea people. So Sparta refuses and simply walks away from this league. Their belief is that if the Persians ever come back to Greece, we will defeat them again like we did at Plataea. When all of the Greeks come together at the last minute, defeat the Persians on land, we don't need to worry about sea and navy. We beat them once, we can beat them again. So the key is the Battle of Plataea, the key is the army, the key is we'll just wait and see. We don't need to build defense against something that may never happen. Sparta returns to isolation again. This is pretty much what Sparta does. They only care about the southern part of the Peloponnesus, and if trouble comes, then they'll deal with it their way. Once this happens, once Sparta refuses Athens, other cities will begin to kind of question, maybe we don't need to participate with Athens. And also, as time goes on, the Battle of Plataea was in 479, and as the decades go by, the 460s, the 450s, other cities are going to question this use of the money, and where's the money going, and will the Persians ever return, or are we just paying money for no reason? Actually, they'll start to kind of form around Sparta. Some of the cities on the Peloponnesus, the ones that haven't been defeated by Sparta, will kind of gravitate towards Sparta as like, yeah, we're with Sparta. If the enemy shows up, then we'll deal with it. We're with Sparta. We don't need to pay money. So they actually start a Peloponnesian League with Sparta as their champion. And basically the idea will be, we'll defend the Peloponnesus. We'll build armies. And if the Persians ever show up, we only care about the Peloponnesus, and so that's all we need to worry about. We don't need a navy that just helps other cities. By the way, during this time, other cities are starting to question Athens. Athens had been destroyed in the Persian Wars. The city had been leveled. And the city begins to be rebuilt very beautifully. Beautiful architecture and art everywhere, and prospering beyond any other city. And people do begin to question, as they begin to build beautiful temples on the Acropolis and all kinds of beautiful things in Athens, people do begin to question, where's the money going? Where's this coming from? And Athens' response is simply, well, we're a very good city. We trade well, and we suffered greatly in the hands of the Persians the first time. So we've kind of earned this beauty that we're building in our city. What eventually happens is a Cold War. Now, a Cold War is a term we use when two or more enemies are angry at each other, but not to the point of fighting just yet. In other words, they're growing hatred, distrust of one another, to the point of almost going to war, or sometimes war, but not directly with each other. So a Cold War develops between Athens and the cities that stand by Athens and the Delian League versus Sparta and the other cities that start to gravitate towards Sparta, away from Athens. So you start having a Cold War where there's a lot of hostility among the Greeks, especially as the decades go by and it doesn't seem that the Persians are going to be returning. So this is a classic case, this It's really interesting what's developing here. They will go to war in a second. It's the classic case in military terms of a whale, the largest sea creature, a creature that can't be touched by any other sea creature. The whale, the Athenian navy, untouchable at sea, against an elephant. Sparta and her army, undefeatable army, this great Spartan phalanx, unbeatable on land. So how is this going to play out? A naval power, Athens, versus a land power, Sparta. Neither can touch each other, it seems, using the little diagram here of a whale, massive whale at sea versus an elephant on land. Who would win, and how would they even fight? That's the question. And we actually study this. Our military academies study this war in depth, what's about to happen here between a sea power and a land power. What's more important, sea or land? So an elephant and a whale are about to fight. So here's a map of Greece. Here's Athens on this peninsula. Here's Sparta on this peninsula. They're not too far away from each other. Sparta and her allies are land powers. Athens and her allies will be sea powers. So how do they go to war? Well, the war starts pretty much, Athens is to blame for this. Athens will push for the war. They had a great orator in the city. Again, Athens is a city where speaking ability is critical here. A man named Pericles will basically rule the city through speech, not by any laws in particular, but just simply the power of his voice. The great orator Pericles, to get this war rolling, pushing for war. He became very popular, pretty much a tyrant almost, return of a tyrant, using his popularity in front of the assembly, great speaking voice, great ideas, pushing for, first of all, an empire, that Athens needs an empire, that Athens is so great and so wonderful, it has all these powers that gravitate to it, and they've defeated Persia. In fact, Athens should be basically an empire ruling over other people. And for this project, he proposes the navy. This is where he really pushes the navy idea, not only the Battle of Salamis, but also just if we're going to control the Aegean Sea and probably the Mediterranean, we need this navy. And he will refer to an oracle's prediction. They had asked the oracle of Delphi, how should they defend Athens? And the oracle's answer was, with wooden walls. Athens will succeed with wooden walls. And so he will say, that is navy, the wooden walls of ships. That's how we're going to, defeat Persia. And it's also going to be useful against Sparta. He's already kind of moving toward the Spartan war here. He also is going to build around Athens long walls. Now, this is something strange and unusual, not just a stone wall around the city of Athens, but a stone wall that extends all the way down to the port, all the way down to the port of Piraeus. If you're getting ready to fight an elephant, you're going to need food to the city of Athens. Athens is on land, the home of the elephant. So a wall around Athens to defend Athens, and then a wall at the port to defend the food coming in. So it's interesting. I'll show you a picture in just a second of these long walls. He also begins to rant against Sparta, that Sparta's causing Greece to be weak, defenseless against the Persians, and so the real enemy here is the Persians, but we got to defeat Sparta also. Sparta must be defeated. He rants against them. We have his speeches. This is where we use the word demagogue. Pericles becomes known as a demagogue. The word dema meaning people and gog, to lead the people through fear of war. A demagogue today would be someone who leads and gains popularity by predicting war and acting against the enemy through military means. Pericles becomes quite famous in Athens. Here's a statue of him, or a bust of Pericles, and then a cartoon here of Pericles ranting and with the crowd against his opposing speakers, people who were talking about peace with Sparta. For instance, this guy Kimon, talking about, can't we just get along? And the answer is no. If you're Pericles, there must be war. We must defeat these Spartans. So here's a diagram of the long walls, a wall around Athens, extending all the way down to a wall around Piraeus, so food can come into Piraeus and then be brought up to Athens, as the elephant is going to be stomping around outside the city of Athens. He's already predicting what's going to happen in this war. It starts off as a trade war. This is how wars kind of get started, is through economic pressures. The Athenian navy in order to penalize the Peloponnesian League, begins to embargo the Peloponnesus, begins to just stop all sea traffic around the Peloponnesus. This doesn't anger the Spartans really, but it'll anger Sparta's allies, and they will come to Sparta and say, hey, we need help here. We're part of a league, and we were predicting war against the Persians, but now we are coming to war against Athens. And the war does begin. The war finally breaks out. And we will break it into 3 phases. This is going to be an easy way to kind of keep track of what happens here in this war. The opening shots of the war are fired in 431, Athens and her allies versus Sparta and her allies, the Peloponnesian War. 431, and then this first phase lasts for 10 years. Here's what happens in the first phase of this war. Athens, the whale, is going to control the sea. And so they will blockade the Peloponnesus, this peninsula basically completely surrounded by water, and so just stopping everything around the Peloponnesus. The elephant will go crazy and will rampage all the way up to Athens and stomp around Athens, destroying all the land around Athens and laying siege, just making sure that the city of Athens tries to be cut off, but they can't get inside the walls. Those walls around Athens were built really well. Athens' long walls defends the city and defends their food supply. So the Spartan elephant will stomp around and destroy all the food on the Attica Peninsula.